Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to this training on how to improve your wedding business's organic search rankings on Google so you can outrank your competitors and generate more leads and sales. My name's Toby McKeldin. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Real Weddings. And just before we jump into the agenda, let's look at the context, the sort of big picture here. There has been a huge amount of change in search marketing over the last several years. Today, the vast majority of your potential wedding customers will begin searching for their wedding suppliers on Google. So, if you're not ranking for your wedding business's key search terms on that first page of Google search results, it's kind of unlikely that you're going to be found or even taken into consideration. So, improving your organic search results is fundamentally important if you want to drive new sales, new leads, new inquiries. So, this training is going to give you and your marketing team the actionable tools and tactics that you need to implement to improve your wedding business's search rankings so you can get found by more newly engaged couples. Now, I understand if you're thinking, yes, but I've tried SEO before and it didn't work, or if you're concerned that competition is so fierce in your particular niche or geography that it's going to be impossible to rank on that first page, or maybe you're just worried that you're not technical and won't get this stuff. I just want to assure you that I'm going to cover off each of those concerns and that you will get a lot of value out of sticking with me for the duration of the training. So I'd really, as I go through these tools and techniques, I'd be asking you to think about how they apply to your wedding business, whether you own or manage, marketing for a venue or a wedding photography business or a gown designer or a DJ or florist or any of the other wedding related sectors. So a little bit of background. My name's Toby McKeldin, as I mentioned. I co-founded Real Weddings in 2001, and we're the creators of realweddings.com.au, which is now one of the largest wedding websites in Australia. Prior to founding Real Weddings, I had a background in marketing and technology here in the UK and the US. And we're now delivering digital marketing services to over 200 of Australia's leading wedding businesses. So this is, I guess, the kind of high level agenda that we're going to be using for the workshop today. And it's a visual representation of the agenda that we call intent-based search optimization. So, what is your prospect searching for? Why are they searching for it? Understanding that in detail, and then creating digital assets that satisfy that search query, understanding which channel we should put those assets on so that we've got the highest potential of reaching our unique prospects, and then optimizing those assets to ensure that they're at the top of the relevant search results, and then figuring out what is the next step in our customer journey. And again, for context, to think about, the world has really changed a lot. In the old days when we started Real Weddings, we started out as a national print magazine. We're a multi-award-winning magazine. In those days, if you wanted to market your wedding business to a large audience of newly engaged couples, really probably the first thing you do is put an ad in a magazine like ours. And then you'd reach a large audience of newly engaged couples and drive leads and sales. But a few years ago, we noticed, along with the rest of the print industry, that there was a massive, shift in buyer behavior. Brides were no longer willing to pay $15 for a magazine to get ideas and inspiration for their wedding, when they could get unlimited amount of wedding content for free online through social media, etc., blogs, Pinterest. So we pivoted. We ceased publishing the magazine. We put all our resources into creating realweddings.com.au. And as I say, we're now offering a broader digital marketing services to the whole wedding sector through our digital agency, Real Weddings Digital Agency. So, we really specialize in helping wedding businesses outrank their competitors on Google and driving more leads and sales. So in the last several years, across the board, it's gone from this idea of simple to very complex. And to underline that point, if you have a look at this graphic, this is a few years old now, but it's a visual representation of all of the marketing technology firms out there. And I remembered when social media first came on the scene, some of our clients said, "This is great. We'll do our marketing ourselves. It's free." And marketing and technology and software is growing all the time, and it's getting much harder, much more complex. I think the promise of social and other digital channels was that it was going to make things simpler and easier. Whereas in fact, our clients tell us it's just getting harder and harder to stay on top of all these new technologies and really cut through all the noise. So if you think about that in the context of Google, so this is just a little screen grab from Google with the search term, wedding venues Sydney, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to rank for these very highly competitive search terms, particularly to get to the number one spot like we are here. And the reason is because you're often competing against large wedding websites, directory websites like ours and others. And, we have thousands and thousands of pages of optimized content. So Google these days, one of its key ranking factors is it wants to deliver relevant search results, and that's usually based on quality of content and quantity of content. So, when you're trying to compete for these really high traffic, high competition search terms, it's very difficult if you're a smaller wedding supplier, because you are often fighting up against the bigger websites like ourselves. So one of the things we'll be talking about is how do we do that? How do you cut through when, you are competing with these bigger sites? We now have nearly 7,000 search terms in those top 10 spots. So it can be a challenge. And search marketing has evolved more than any other discipline. So we're going to talk about some of the new rules of search marketing and what you really need to do to get your business on that first page of Google for your key search terms. So the agenda, we'll go into the introduction around wedding SEO. We'll talk about the new rules. We'll look at this concept of intent, context, and assets. And we'll look at how really get into the minds of your potential customers and think about how and why they're searching, and then what kind of digital assets do we need to create in order to be found. We'll talk about how we should optimize those assets. We'll touch quickly on the technical and structural elements of search. We won't do a deep dive on that because it's a big field. And then we will look, and then at the end, we've got an offer for a free SEO audit. And this will give you some of the specific next actions you can take to increase your Google search rankings. So some of the new rules that you need to be aware of around search marketing. Firstly, today, search is very mobile. Throughout this program, we'll be returning back to this idea that we all have a PC in our pockets these days, and we use that search capability of our mobile phones. We really need to be making sure we optimize everything we do for mobile. Google is now actually mobile first. And so every time we build a search campaign or website, it's got to be mobile first. In fact, 60% of our search traffic on realweddings.com.au is now from mobile. The second rule is that search is increasingly technical and structural. So we'll touch on how Google has evolved and how search engines have evolved, and how it's really forced us to think about search marketing in a much more structured way. And we'll touch on things like user experience optimization and robot experience optimization. And a lot of this, so a lot of it today has to do with, in terms of your rankings, is how well you structure the information on your website and how we deliver, marketing assets and how they're structured. So search also has become very technical. It's always been pretty technical, digital marketing, but because the structure of your websites becomes so critical, a lot of those kind of hacks and loopholes that used to exist just don't exist anymore, particularly for larger websites. You're going to find the more technical you are, the better search marketer you're going to be. So we'll touch on that when we get into optimization and user experience. The third rule is today that search marketing is white hat. So you may have heard this expression, white hat, black hat. We're not going to be talking about black hat techniques or any loopholes or hacks or anything like that. I'm going to teach you the things that you need to understand about how to make search engines work to your benefit today. So we're not going to be talking about anything that violates search engines, terms of service, etc. I mean, this is all going to be white hat, as opposed to those kind of black hat kind of hacks that used to exist. Because today, usually the best web page usually wins. Google won the war against black hat SEOs. We think about algorithm updates to Google like Caffeine in 2010, Panda in 2011, Penguin in 2012, Hummingbird 2013. They've all dropped the nuclear bomb on any black hat technique. So you might still be able to get some short-term rankings on Google and through some loopholes. But both from an ethical, they will figure it out pretty quickly. And, so from an ethical and business standpoint, we're going to stay focused on white hat techniques. And these are the things that will create long-term sustainable search marketing gains for your business. And it's also just worth touching on that search these days is not just Google, it's everywhere it matters. So, it used to be just contained to Google and Bing or Yahoo. But these days, search is where you have any large group of people typing in a search query. So it could be Google Maps, it might be Pinterest, it could be TripAdvisor. Anywhere you get a large group organizing together and using search functionality is what we would call a search engine today. But for most of us, Google is still the main game. So that's where we're going to focus most of our energy. So to explain how, understand how the three players of search works and give you some idea of what's important to them. So the searcher, so your potential prospective client, when they type a search query into Google, they are looking for relevant results. They want to find what they're looking for and they want it immediately. And so therefore, and Google is principally interested in revenue, so that in order to generate revenue, they need to provide relevant and popular search results that are going to satisfy the searcher's search query. And that way, the searcher will stay on the web properties that Google owns and they'll generate more revenue. And we'll come back to the marketer in just a sec. So to sort of give you a little bit of sense of how this works, for those who are not as familiar with the way of how Google makes money, if you look at this little screen grab, I've just put a generic search term in here saying order flowers. And what you'll see is that anywhere in red are paid ads. Anywhere that's circled in red are the paid ads, and the blue results at the bottom are the organic search results. So, when we go back to that motivation of sort of the search engine, the search robot, they want more clicks on the paid areas to drive ad revenue. And the only way they're going to do that is by serving relevant, popular search results to the searcher so that they stay on the Google properties. So if we think about the marketer, ultimately, what does your wedding business, what do you want? You want higher rankings in search engines so you can get more traffic and impressions to your website, which then will ultimately lead to more leads and sales. So, last thing so in the end, what you think about is that two of the three players in the search business are really motivated by sales and revenue. And the only person that really isn't is the searcher. So as we go through the program, you're going to notice we'll be very focused on what the searcher wants and then what the search engine wants. And if we can stay focused on that, that will help us improve our rankings in those search engines. So one of the fundamental concepts of this is that search queries are central to search marketing. When we type in a keyword phrase, the search engine wants to return those relevant results. So they can serve ads and generate money. And it all begins with that search query. And there are really two important categories of search queries that we want to target. The first is search queries that are discoverable, and then search queries that make your business available. So let's go through the definitions. So discoverable, this is being found when the searcher is not necessarily looking for you. So in other words, what we would call non-branded queries. And available, this is where you are being found when they are looking specifically for your brand or your search term. So, a discoverable search term might be something like Sydney wedding photographers, which is so they don't have a particular brand associated with it. That will bring back some results, and a branded query, could be the name of a Sydney wedding photographer. So another example, type in and, for example, here, the searcher is looking for Sydney wedding venues. So it's a non-branded search term, and Zest waterfront venues are discoverable for that generic search term, or not generic, but Sydney wedding venues. Then they're also available for branded search queries. So if the searcher typed their name in, This is what we call available. They're coming up number one. So clearly we want to make sure our business is both discoverable and available on all the right channels. And it's more about than just getting traffic. We want to make sure that our digital assets are tied back to the intent and context of our potential searchers. So to explain this concept in a little bit more depth, what is intent? What are our prospective prospects searching for? And then why are they searching for it? So to give you an example, this gentleman wants to find a waterfront venue in Melbourne. That's his intent. And the context is because he wants to hold a 30th birthday party. This lady's, her intent is she wants to find a romantic restaurant in Sydney. And the context is to celebrate her 20th wedding anniversary. So intent and context translate into search queries. Like, I want to find a waterfront venue, or I'm looking for romantic restaurants in Sydney. So they literally transfigure themselves into search terms that are typed into the search engine. So search is then about creating digital assets that meet that context and intent. So to compete for a search query, you only need a digital asset that a prospect can find. So such as can be a blog post, it could be a YouTube video, it could be a Pinterest pin, an online brochure or web page, etc. Could be any kind of digital asset that meets that intent and context. So the internet really frees us from the limitations of the physical world. You can build as many digital assets on your website as you'd like to, as really fulfill as many of those intent and context type queries as you can. So, that brings us to an interesting and extremely important, I guess, topic in search marketing, which is this idea of the long tail of search. So, for example, if you ran a waterfront wedding venue, which queries would you target on Google? And, all of 5 of these people want to do the same thing. They have the same intent. They want to find a waterfront venue in Sydney, but they have separate contexts as to why they want a waterfront wedding venue in Sydney. And each one of those may have different levels of search volume for them. So somebody looking for a wedding may be more than, somebody for their 40th birthday, for example. Obviously, that's just a visual representation. But, you might say, well, I'm going to target those people, all those people. But why, you may as well. Why not target all of them? You've got no limitations on physical space. And it could become easier to reach some of them on the lower end of this search demand curve. This is what we call the search demand curve. And when you think about the distribution of people that are searching on the internet, what you find is that there are some very common, top 100 keywords. There are millions and millions of searches for those keywords every day on Google. We call that the fat head of search. Incredibly hard to rank for those most common keywords. Then you've got the chunky middle of search, which is sort of lower volume of search and slightly easier to compete for. And then ultimately the long tail, which are more detailed search queries that are more specific and asked in a lower volume than these. So they are much easier to rank for. And, there's actually in aggregate a lot of traffic for this long tail of search. So again, incredibly hard to rank for these main search terms or the most common ones, much easier to rank for the long tail of search. And we'll talk about how to define the long tail and what it consists of. But ultimately, this makes up 80% of all search traffic. So long tail searches are low volume, but they have redeeming qualities. Ultimately, they are lower competition and you get higher conversion rates for long tail keywords. Often the intent is also much more specific at the long tail. So in other words, the person who's searching really knows what they're looking for. They're much deeper in the sales funnel and they're probably more ready to purchase. So that conversion rate goes up. So what we want to do is optimize your site for long tail keyword phrases where you can rank quickly where your competition is low and where you have a fairly high conversion rate, because you know that the people are really getting ready to purchase because at that long tail. And when you think about how big is the long tail, 1 in 5 queries on Google have never been typed into the search engine before. So, it's a huge amount of search traffic that's never even been asked of Google. So there is a lot of traffic and a great opportunity for us to rank your business in that long tail of search very highly in the search engines. So what we want to do is target intent and context and build assets across the entire demand curve. And then particularly focused on that long tail. So how do we know what assets to build? It really comes down to keyword research. So for example, this venue on Sydney waterfront, continuing the theme, wants more customers. And, there is a sequence that you need to think about and follow in order to get more customers. So in the upper left here, what we've got your potential client, the center. Your clients first need to become aware that you even exist. And that can be done through online ads, social media, content marketing, organic search, and PR. And once they've become aware that you exist, we then want them to subscribe to your business, to your list. So it could be lead magnets, it could be an email newsletter or a social media account, again, content, perhaps webinars, open days if you're in venues. Then we want them to move from the subscribe stage to convert. So this is when they're making their first purchase. They might, again, come in for a meal if you're in a venue. And then we want to engage, promote, upsell, and cross-sell over time. So how do we get, firstly, this stage around awareness? What digital assets do we create to gain awareness? So let's look at this lady. So her search term her intent is that she wants to find a waterfront venue in Sydney for her wedding. So where would that fall on the funnel of these phases? It falls in this awareness stage. So you can see here, she's just beginning her search. She's not exactly sure what she's looking for yet. She's just trying to become aware of the various options. So awareness stage, we want to be optimizing digital assets that are going to help us be found when somebody types in a search query like, I want to find a waterfront venue in Sydney for her wedding. What about this intent? So I want reviews of a harborside hotel because I'm thinking of holding my wedding there. Where is the person, or where is this lady in the sales funnel? What stage are they in? Are they in the awareness stage, subscription stage, or are they getting ready to really convert? When somebody's looking for reviews or pricing, for example, you can be pretty confident that they're getting ready to make a purchasing decision. So if you can figure out that intent and context, you will then find the keywords that you need to rank for. So finding intent and context. So in this module, we're going to take you through the process you can find to use to figure out intent and context. Because again, if you can find that, you can use that as the basis on which to build your keyword strategy. So 5 ways to research intent and context. First is to ask your sales and service team. So this is pretty simple. And that could be you, depending on the size of the business. You might be the person interacting with your customers the most. You probably intuitively know why people buy from you and what the intent and context is with which they approach your business. What are the common reasons somebody comes to your business? So for example, common sense example, if you were a B&B, you can infer that one of the reasons people might go to a B&B or search for a B&B is for their anniversary. So you might want to create digital assets around planning the perfect anniversary, for example. So that's common sense. So the other one is around customer avatar. So by completing a customer avatar and creating a customer avatar, and I'll touch on how to do this in a sec, you will generate a lot of the most lucrative intent and context keywords by really getting into the mind and understanding who is your customer. And you can then create intent-based avatars. So you can have different avatars based on different intents. And then the final one is keyword research tools. So these are things like the Google keyword research tool, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But don't disregard the first two. Just the sales team, the service team, and common sense can give you some very good ideas around what are they, the key reasons people look for you, what is both their intent, what's the context, and then that'll help you come up with the right kind of keywords that you want to figure out and then build assets around. So in terms of building avatars, we have a tool here that will take you through the process of understanding who your ideal prospect is. And this is just a very useful tool for anything to do with digital marketing, because it informs so many things, whether it's content marketing or blog, topics or videos you create or sales copy, maybe even your paid ads. Once you really understand who your perfect customer avatar is, you can build all the assets around that and really appeal to them. So if you'd like a copy of this tool with instructions on how to complete it, just drop me an email, toby@realweddings.com.au, and it's a simple step-by-step process for discovering customers' intent and context-based search terms. So you, again, can figure out those long-tail keywords that you want to rank for. The other one is, keyword search tools like the Google keyword tool can be useful, but one of the things I just want to point out is that they are often not sensitive enough to really figure out when you're trying to find those long tail keywords. They often don't have enough data to give you accurate numbers on volumes, etc. So the more niche keywords that could be absolutely perfect for you, they often won't be sensitive enough to pick up using the Google search keyword tool. So again, I would go back to your customers, your sales and service teams, and common sense, and figure out what are some of those ones. So if you want that copy of the avatar and some other research tools, just drop me an email to toby@realweddings.com.au. Another way to think about it is this term of common modifiers, keyword modifiers. When you're thinking about how do I create these long tail keywords that you can rank for, keyword modifiers help you sort of wrap around your primary keywords. So, for example, keyword modifiers at the top of the funnel could be things like learn, information. So you might have wedding photography information, or your keyword plus news, keyword plus ideas, keyword plus tips, wedding planning tips, for example, wedding planning inspiration, wedding examples, could be any of those keywords. So you can add those keywords to your core keywords to turn them into more longer tail ones. So it looks like this: from Sydney wedding venues to Sydney wedding venue inspiration. Then keyword modifiers at the bottom of the funnel. So you remember the top is awareness. At the bottom, they're getting ready, more ready to purchase. Could be things like buy, wedding flowers, purchase, wedding photography, book, wedding venue, wedding cake pricing. You compare wedding DJs, reviews of any of the categories, order, wedding flowers. It could be any of these words that simply sit before your primary keyword and will help you then rank for people that are closer to the bottom of that purchasing funnel and, increase sales as a consequence. So just another example, Sydney wedding venues moves to Sydney wedding reviews, or Sydney wedding venues goes to Sydney wedding venue pricing, for example. So which would you rather rank for? This generic one around Sydney wedding venues, or book Sydney wedding venues? I think I'd rather be ranking for somebody who's looking to book a Sydney wedding venue because they're much lower down the funnel and ready to make a purchase. So from Sydney wedding venues to Sydney wedding venue pricing. So just adding those modifiers can create that long tail keyword, which you can then create a digital asset around and compete more strongly for, rather than the more generic terms. So let's look at part 3, optimization. So we discussed how to identify your wedding business's potential customers' intent. We'll now talk about how to optimize digital assets so you can be found in search. So Firstly, let's look at web pages. I mean, this is obviously a big subject. We're just going to give you the highlights, the key things to think about. So there is really 6 elements that we want to optimize on every web page. And actually, it's pretty simple to optimize a web page. So first one is title tag. I'm going to explain what these are in just a sec. Meta description, your heading and title, URL, and then body copy and image alt text. So let's look at a generic example. So I'm not picking on anyone particularly in the wedding industry. So Xero, we're probably all familiar with it, is an accounting software. Let's look at how they're pretty good at SEO. So let's look at how they structure it. So title tag and meta description. So the first thing you want to be looking at in terms of optimizing your web pages is getting the keywords that you're looking to optimize for into the title tag. So that title tag is really the most critical, or one of the most critical SEO elements on any web page. And so, you can see here that here's the code that I pulled from back end of Xero's web page. This is their homepage. You can see the keyword is their accounting software and online bookkeeping. And then their brand is right there. And so it's pretty simple. You can see that this title tag polls into the Google search results as the main heading. So it should read well. It should also contain the keyword, but it should also read well. It should be natural English. Xero is the QuickBooks alternative. Use Xero accounting software to manage invoicing, etc. So Google will pull this meta description into the search results as well as the description. They shuffle things around from time to time, but when you're optimizing these 2 pieces, really the most critical part to optimize when it comes to how search results will appear in Google search engine results. So then the heading, URL, body copy, and alt image. So then you've got other things that you need to think about. So you can see here fast financial reporting, features, financial reporting, the URL. So, surprisingly, the URL has quite a lot to do with SEO. So it's certainly not as big a factor as, say, title tag, but you do want to have the keyword in your URL ideally. And, we like to keep nice, clean URLs. So I like the way this one's set up. So it's just xero.com. This is the US site /US accounting /software /financial reporting. So the URL should contain the keyword, and the keyword should also be in the body copy. So you can see as we read into the body copy, you've got, how the word sort of repeats here. Not too many times, by the way. It's got to be natural sounding English. And we also want to make sure that we get alt image text right. So this is image on the page. And when you upload an image, through your CMS or put it on the image on the page, you want to make sure the keywords that make sense for that image are included. All right, so 6 elements to optimize: title tag, meta description, heading and title, URL, body copy, and the image alt text as well. All right, so when you're thinking about how to optimize a blog, there are 3, the same, all the areas that we just went through with the web page, plus 2 new elements. So all the web page elements, plus social sharing, and what's called freshness. So let's unpack these. Now, this is a digital marketer over in the States. They're a digital marketing training business. Let's look at how they do it. So 2 differences in the bloggers say you've got to update. Actually, let's look at the blog here. So let's unpack these 2 differences in optimizing a blog page. So you've got your traditional idea of, you've got your URL, and you can see I've got a blog post here, ideas in the URL. I've got my headline. You can see the title tag, or at least the last part of it is up here in my screenshot. And you've got the ultimate list of blog post ideas. So my keyword is appearing in all the normal places that's in the body, and a couple of times it's also going to be in the alt image text. But you're also going to want to include social sharing capabilities on your blog content, because it is a signal for Google to determine which pages to rank. So the amount of social sharing that your content is getting and the interaction it's getting can impact the rankings of that content. So it's not a significant factor as far as we can tell, but it is something you need to take into account. And it just makes sense that on your blog content to include social sharing buttons and to pay attention to the amount of social sharing that you're getting. So if you want to get traction on social media, by the way, and you want to get it immediately instead of just kind of publishing content and hoping that it gets picked up over time, one of the things you can do is start experimenting with social ads, like ads in Facebook, ads on Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., that will push your content out and force it to be seen. And assuming the content's good, and that should really prime the pump and get your social media sharing going by buying some traffic to the blog posts and other content. So I'm a big fan of social ads to promote your content rather than just publishing and hoping that it gets picked up and then gains traffic. So if you're not seeing good traction on social and you're not getting great content or great interaction, go ahead and engagement, start experimenting with buying a little bit of traffic and getting that ball rolling. And then why is freshness, this concept of freshness, important? So it's not touched on very often, but it's increasingly becoming important, I think. And that is simply the internet is aging. Yeah. So every day the internet gets a day older. There are about 2.7 million blog posts that gets published every single day. And you remember Google's motivation. It wants revenue. It wants to serve relevant results to the searcher. So it can serve those popular results so the searcher stays on the property they own. And in order to do that, they've had to start considering freshness as part of their algorithm because there are just so many blog posts that get published every day. And this is something Google uses, they call the query deserves freshness or QDF algorithms. And that's for queries like, Indigo, upcoming events in Melbourne, Tiger Woods Masters, Steve Jobs, AFL scores, etc. So Google is favoring freshness. So one of the ways you can do that is simply by updating your blog posts every so often. So you see Digital Marketer here, they have second edition. You might want to do it on a time basis, 2021 list of wedding planning idea or things to consider for 2021, or whatever the most recent year is. So you want to update your blog posts and then republish them so that they remain fresh. And you can see this is just an example. This blog post was updated, refreshed, organic traffic. And the way to do it is by you figure out what is a high performing blog page through your analytics. Then do a bit of on-page SEO for that particular blog article, update it, and then re-energize it, particularly with some social ads. So you can go into your analytics and find this. If you're not sure how to do this, again, just email me at toby@realweddings.com.au and I can guide you through it. You perform some on-page SEO. So title, tag, heading, title, URL, meta description, body copy, and image alt text. Do not change the URL. That is one of the common mistakes. You want to keep the same URL. Just update it, and then correct any inaccuracies. Add perhaps some clarity or newer examples or some additional screenshots or some video or infographics to the post, and then re-energize it with some paid ads. And that can really help rankings improve almost immediately. So definitely worth trying to, with blog posts, freshen them up, re-optimize them, and then promote them with some social advertising. So just on the final part, the fourth part of the presentation, which is around the technical user optimization or experience optimization. And the big picture around this is that experience optimization is a big part of search marketing today. So we'll be talking about UXO and RXO. And on the left here, we've got our searcher, so that he's trying to find a resource or an asset or an answer. And they've got an intent and context. And on the right, we're going to be talking about RXO or robot experience optimization. So we need to consider the experience of both the searcher and the search engine if we want to win at search marketing. So we want to eliminate any kind of brick walls or technical brick walls that are putting up blocks for our user and things that put up technical brick walls from the search robot. We also want to eliminate any speed bumps, any kind of smaller issues. They might not be huge brick walls or big walls that stop users from using our site, or robots, from finding and ranking our site. These are little speed bumps that if we remove them, we'll actually be, throwing out a welcome mat for our user or the search engine. So when we talk about our free SEO audit in a minute, which is designed to kind of find any of these roadblocks or speed humps on your site. But before I do that, I just want to touch on the importance of having a good content management system, or CMS. And the CMS today is very important. And these are, when you think of CMSs or content management systems, these can be things like WordPress, or, if you were in e-commerce, Shopify, and they're the systems that you use to build and manage your content or your shopping cart. And we log into these systems, we build our websites, and they're a good CMS will make life a lot easier. It's got good navigation, great speed. There are a lot of plugins, themes, or skins you can use, and they're really optimized for user experience and robot experience. So, there are a lot of good ones out there. WordPress is obviously probably the largest and one of the best. And they are just built in such a way that it makes it easy for the search engine to navigate and find your content. So if you're considering rebuilding your website so that it's optimized for search, you might want to consider switching to a solid, content management system. It'll make life a lot easier. So we've covered a lot in this presentation. I realize it can all feel a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot to think about when you first decide to start working on improving your search marketing and optimizing your website for search. So to help you get started, what I'd like to do is offer you a free SEO audit of your website, and we will create a comprehensive set of technical recommendations around user optimization and including quick wins you can make to start improving your search engine rankings today and get found by more newly engaged couples. So if you'd like to find out more about that, please just email me, toby@realweddings.com.au. We'd love to work with you. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and we look forward to helping you drive more visibility, more awareness in Google, and more leads and sales. Thanks a lot.